All right. Everyone, thank you for joining us for the kickoff of the Labor and Literacy Library program. Why be a Labor and Literacy Library? My name's Sarah Antonelli. I work here at the Plainfield Public Library as a program assistant for the Labor and Literacy Library program. We expect a fairly large audience. As you can see, people are still joining as we have begun. And they're all those who want to learn more about the program and why be a Labor and Literacy Library. We do ask that all questions throughout the session, since there are so many folks, be placed in chat. For those answers we cannot get to during the session, we will create a list of FAQs and circulate that afterwards. And just a few more housekeeping points. Again, please place your first name, last name, and library on your Zoom so that we can keep track of who attended this session. That would be very, very helpful to us. Keep an eye on the chat because I'll put some reminders in along the way, especially for those who join after the intro. We will be recording this session. And for those who could not join today, there will also be repeat sessions of why be a Labor and Literacy Library, as well as several of our other workshops. And all of our workshops will be posted on the New Jersey State Library Central website, which I will share the link on chat and also circulate that afterwards so that you can see when the workshops are coming up and which dates might be best for you to register for. And that will enable enrollment in all of those workshops. At the end of the session, we will distribute a link to the registration form. And this form will contain an overview of the different ways you can be involved and information on how New Jersey State Library and Partners team can help you achieve your goals. You can also get access to the form on the State Library Central website as well. And as I said, we will post the central website link as well as the link to the registration form and our email for the Labor and Literacy Libraries for those who have questions throughout the entire program. I'll post them in chat. So those are the highlights of my housekeeping tips. I would now like to introduce Kristen Broggi. And Kristen is a valuable resource here at the Plainfield Public Library and is an instructor and program coordinator for the Labor and Literacy Library program. So Kristen, I turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I also want to welcome all of you that have joined to learn why you should become a Labor and Literacy Library. I'm so excited to see all of you. I want to let you know that this is a partnership between the New Jersey State Library and Plainfield Public Library. So we're actually going to start this session out with a message from Jennifer Nelson, our state librarian.
Hi, my name is Jen Nelson, and I have the pleasure of serving as New Jersey State Librarian. Some of you may remember that I came here in 2021 from Minnesota. And I have to be honest, I came for two reasons, Bruce Springsteen and pizza. And I've been pleased ever since with what I've found in both of those regards. Public libraries have always been the cornerstones of community, safe spaces for neighbors to come together to learn, to explore, and to improve. At their heart, public libraries are where people go to get help, and today that means so much more than books and digital media. To continue helping their communities, libraries have become essential access points for so many important services. Whether a patron wants to apply for a job, file for benefits, look up information, or just stay in touch with their grandkids, any lack of access to digital infrastructure or the basic know-how required to use it can be intimidating and isolating. As more of the world moves online, these patrons might be left behind. And this is where our program comes in. We know you're already doing the work, and we want to help. The New Jersey State Library and the Plainfield Public Library have designed a powerful approach to helping your library help these patrons improve their digital literacy and workplace skills, the Labor and Literacy Library Program. More than a physical space, the Labor and Literacy Library Program is a shared commitment to providing patrons with the essential training and individual support they need to become more successful members of the modern workforce and more connected members of the community. Whether your library is just starting out or you have established programs already in place, we've designed professional development sessions, materials, workshops, and digital resources to help you better serve your clients in efficient ways. As a partner library, support is only a call or email away. You don't need to go it alone. Together, we can help you help your community. So I invite you to join us as a labor and literacy library. Be part of our groundworking network of public libraries around the state, making the commitment to closing the digital divide in their communities. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for that wonderful message. I know Jen is, sorry. I know Jennifer's gonna try to join us today, but in case not, there was a lot of great information, and you're going to be able to review this message on the Labor and Literacy Library website, and we'll be sharing those links throughout the session. And so what I want to start with now is I just want to introduce everybody to the team that is working on this project to get y'all where you need to go or want to go. So I'm going to start with Andrea. And Andrea,
hi all.
There we go.
My name is Andrea Lewandowski. I'm the library consultant for small business development and technology at the New Jersey State Library. And I am the state library's project coordinator for this. The New Jersey State Library is supporting Plainfield Public Library in the services that they will be offering as part of the Labor and Literacy Library program. And I am thrilled to be working with them on behalf of the state library. And I am looking forward to working with any of the libraries that decide to sign up and participate. If you need any support at all from the New Jersey State Library, please do not hesitate to reach out. Digital literacy is a priority of Jennifer Nelson, our New Jersey State Librarian, and it has been a commitment of the state library, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic pointed out the digital disparities that we see across the state and the skills that people have, and also in the wake of all of the ARPA funds that we had received and the projects that we have implemented in the past. So you can see from my slide that I am very busy at home with my daughter and my cats, who when they do get together, it is like a big blanket of Tabby. So that is me and my fun element. And one more thing I just wanted to mention back to the work side is yesterday I did send out an email to all of the Northstar licensees that have Northstar licenses. So if you are one of those libraries and you didn't see that email, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Please let me know. And I'm looking forward to also working with the libraries that have Northstar licenses, and stay tuned for some updates on that as well. So I think that's it. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We're going to move on to Scott, who I believe is with us right now, although he's actually on paternity leave. There, I hear him. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, yeah, hi. My name is Scott Kempsky. I'm the Director of Literacy Services at Plainfield Public Library. Wow, you guys had fun making this slide, which I had not actually seen because I'm on paternity leave. So I'm actually going to make this brief as I'm in one of the 30 seconds between fits of colic. Mine, not, I don't like being stuck at home. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this all in the team's very capable hands. I think a lot of you do know me and know that I'm generally available if anyone needs anything. If you have any questions or concerns, absolutely. I will be back on sometime in the first week of January, because this guy got a jury duty notice for the first day he was supposed to be back from paternity leave. So, woohoo! Yay! Anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen, and if anybody needs anything, please feel free to email or message me.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm going to introduce Colleen to everybody because she is out right now. Colleen Connell is the program lead from the Plainfield Public Library for the New Jersey State New Jersey State Library Plus Partners Labor and Literacy Library Program, and that is a mouthful. And I'm just gonna tell you her quick fun facts are that she does love to ski. We hear about her skiing all winter, so that's great. She and her husband have two absolutely adorable black and white cats that when she works from home, I get to see on her Zoom. And Jeopardy does play a huge part in her nighttime routine. So that's a quick bit about Colleen. She will be running some of the sessions later on. She and I work closely together with creating all of the tools that we're providing you through this program. And then here I am. Again, my name is Kristen Broggi, and I also work for the Plainfield Public Library. And I'm so excited actually about this whole coming year. I can't wait to be working on this Labor and Literacy Library program, creating workshops, teaching workshops, working with all of the libraries that are going to join us in this journey. I'm very excited. My fun facts are that I absolutely adore teaching technology. It is one of my favoriteest things to do, and I specifically love office tools, other productivity tools as well. I am also a huge Excel nerd. I'm one of those people that, you know, my friends text me and say, oh, can you help me with this Excel problem? I'm sorry to bother you. And I'm like, yes, because I am that excited about it. And yeah, my family has 4 dogs and a cat. So these are my little animals at the bottom corner of my screen. And I'm going to now turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, I've already introduced myself, but I will again for those who joined a little bit later. I'm the program assistant for this program, and I'm so looking forward to this year as well. It's very exciting for us here. Welcome everyone, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And there's a couple of folks we would really like to say thank you to. And I don't know if they've been able to sign on today or not, but we want to thank Mary Ellen Rogan, who is the director of the Plainfield Public Library, for her continued support of the NJSL programs, of the team working on those programs and all that we've done over the last year with that. And also Jennifer Nelson, the state librarian. We already shared her kickoff message, but we just want to, we really want to thank her for her continued trust in Plainfield Library to run programs supporting other libraries. So thank you both. If you're on and would like to say something, feel free to unmute real quick and let us know. All right, then I'm gonna,
yeah.
Whoop, I'm sorry, what, Sarah?
Mary Ellen is joined yet, no.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to start this off by providing y'all with a little background about what came before this Labor and Literacy Library program. That way you get an understanding of where we're coming from and how it's informed where we're going to go. Some of you have probably heard of the Hub and Spoke or Access Navigator library program that was run last year. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, here's a bit about how it started and where it started. So towards the end of 2021, New Jersey State Library launched the NJSL Plus Partners Literacy Program. The overarching goal of that program was really to showcase libraries as a literacy destination in the communities across the state. The literacy project, piloted 2 different models or 2 different ways of delivering adult literacy in New Jersey. I'm going to start by talking about the Access Navigators pilot. And I think we might have a couple of Access Navigators or their libraries here today, so welcome. Access Navigators was run through the New Jersey Library Association, and it was an initiative that placed a cohort of skilled trainers, also known as their navigators, into select libraries across the state. And the navigators provided individualized assistance to folks that were seeking employment or job training or digital competence. And I real quick saw in chat, we were an Access Navigator site and loved it. Yeah. They did a fabulous job of really connecting with patrons in a lot of libraries and gave them a lot of support and training and instruction. And then the second pilot model was the hub and spoke libraries, which was created to provide a standardized and replicable, I always have a problem with that word, program for library-based digital literacy instruction and certification. And the goal of that was to assist folks getting into or continuing in New Jersey's workforce. I'm going to focus a bit on the Hub and Spoke Libraries program, partially because it was facilitated by the team at Plainfield, but also because the model of that program really is leading into the labor and library literacy program. So over the course of the year, the libraries that were part of Hub and Spoke served 368 individuals, which accounted for almost 4,000 hours of service, training, support. For those of you who aren't familiar, going back a little further, Plainfield's been running a successful labor and literacy lab and digital literacy certification programs going back for years. So that's why last year we were charged with helping libraries to replicate all or part of the programs that we've run at Plainfield. So the Hub and Spoke team at Plainfield worked with 3 libraries that received funding to build a computer lab, hire staff, run a labor and literacy program, as well as an IC3 or a computer certification boot camp. So we had 3 libraries who did that. We also worked with 11 spoke libraries, and those libraries received funding to hire staff and run, we called it their labor and literacy lab, but it was different types of programs and support on a smaller level with no certification involved. To make that happen, both groups underwent intensive training to reach their goals. Now, we're aware most libraries don't have those kinds of resources, but we know that libraries do deserve to be able to support their patrons in their employment, in their literacy goals. So all of this led to the creation of this year's New Jersey State Library Plus Partners Labor and Literacy Library Program. For this year, though, at Plainfield, we're focused on breaking down the parts of the Hub and Spoke program because it was a huge program. We're going to break it down into smaller pieces and encourage your libraries to pick and choose. What parts do you think your patrons need? What parts do you have the capability to run in your library? So we're going to chunk it so that you can take what you need from all of the tools that we're providing. Plainfield will continue to offer centralized support for any library, New Jersey library that wants to participate in the program. But we understand the constraints of staff, of time, of space that all libraries are dealing with. So while we're offering the support, your library is in control of what you choose to use, what you choose to do, and how you plan on using the tools that we're offering. When we started thinking about the program logistics, we all sat down and figured out how we at Plainfield Public Library could really serve other libraries in New Jersey better. So the first thing we did was we came up with these guiding principles. Excuse me. What we believe to be true about New Jersey libraries. And I want to share them with you so you understand where we're coming from in what we have created for you. And while I'm not a big fan of a presenter reading a PowerPoint slide, I'm going to do it for, I think, this slide and then the next one. So we believe libraries are safe public spaces open to all patrons seeking information and education services. Library staff are committed to providing the highest level of service and guidance to all patrons. Library patrons, including those from marginalized communities, rely on New Jersey public libraries to provide transformative access to technology as well as digital literacy skills, adult basic education, English language learning, which is also known to some as ESL, and job search assistance. Libraries are in a unique position to understand and respond to the specific needs of their community. And we believe a network of libraries working together can be strong advocates for their collective mission and better serve their communities. So these are the principles we run this program on. I would bet that most of you think most or all of these principles are true regarding how you run your library as well. So if so, we're going to have a really good fit here. Once we came up with those guiding principles, we then wrote the mission statement for Plainfield to follow in all of our work on this program. So I'm again going to just read it to you so you understand where we're coming from. Our mission statement is to build on the success of the NJSL Plus Partners Literacy Program from last year by supporting New Jersey libraries as they provide assistance to their patrons seeking digital literacy, adult basic education, English language learning, and job search assistance, which I think is a fabulous mission. I hope y'all agree with that. But if I was in your seats right now, I would be sitting here and thinking, well, how is this going to happen? How is this going to be different from, especially those of you who are at a hub in the Spoke Library, how is it going to be different from last year? So one of the big things we learned with from our partnership with the State Library, the hub libraries, the Spoke libraries, the Navigator libraries, we learned that the need for digital literacy instruction and for job search assistance that all of these folks that worked on this program came across was even greater than we had originally expected. We found a huge need for the resources that we were providing. The other thing we at Plainfield learned was that while we have a really successful program for our patron base, not every library's patrons have the same needs. So instead of focusing year 2 on teaching libraries how to replicate our program, we're going to be providing all of the Labor and Literacy Library program members with the tools to deliver all kinds of services around digital literacy and around job seeking, but we're going to do it in a way that works within their library structure. So I'm going to break that down a little bit more and tell you a bit about what your library gets out of joining this Labor and Literacy Library program. At Plainfield, we're going to be offering many professional workshops to libraries across New Jersey. The workshops are going to cover how to provide different labor and literacy services to your patrons, how to provide those services, whether you have 1 or 2 computers and a staff member who's got an hour, 2 hours a week, or if you've got an entire computer lab with maybe 15 computers and a full-time staff member who all they do is provide literacy and workforce development skills. So we're really focused on understanding where you're coming from. We're going to provide you with what we call our workshops in a box so that your libraries can use them. And a workshop in a box, think of it as a prepackaged version of some of the most popular training sessions that we provide to our patrons. So the package itself would include a recording of the workshop being run so that you could review the recording of the workshop whenever you want to. It will also give you all of the materials that are used in the running of the workshop. So the materials that the instructor would need to have to run the workshop, or that the students would need to run the workshop. And again, even if you're working with one patron on a specific skill and there's a workshop for it, you're going to be able to use those tools, or you're going to be able to use to run a large class. We have planned this year's program with a lot of flexibility. So that's part of the other thing we're working on to make sure this works for you all. Also, libraries and their staff members that become involved in this program will receive what we call badges for performance and involvement. And badges, if you've never heard of them before, they're also known as micro-credentials. They're a little digital representation of learnings that you've completed, goals that you've achieved, tasks that you've completed. And the badges, when we send them to you, you actually get a link to them. And the link you can put up on a website, you can add it to LinkedIn or any other social media profile. So when your library chooses to take part in this program, you choose what sessions you want to attend that we're providing, and then what workshops or tools you want to use within your library. Excuse me. We're also going to help you out with sort of some standardized forms so that you'll be able to keep track of attendance and clients that you've worked with and hours that you've spent supporting your clients or your patrons. So you'll get those, you'll get some marketing and promotional materials that are really going to help you get the word out to all of your patrons. And then we've already got, I think, 42 people signed into this session. Everybody who is joining the program becomes part of this network of libraries that are focused on growing digital literacy, growing job search, workforce development programs within your library. So you'll all become part of this network where you go to each other for advice or support. Plainfield will host a bi-monthly, we call them open office hours, where you all can come together for a specific time to talk, network, etc. But you'll also be able to reach out to other libraries separately as well. And the Plainfield team will always be here to support you as you need. So whether it's by phone, by email, by Zoom, we will be here to help you utilize the tools that we've provided. So that's what you are going to get from Plainfield. What do you have to do? I always like to say labor and literacy libraries really can do as much or as little as they want or as their library can handle. You can have individual staff members attend any of the workshops that we offer for professional development. For example, maybe you've got somebody who is going to provide instruction to a small group, but they've never done instruction before. So we provide workshops on how to provide instruction or make presentations. We'll provide workshops on helping people with resumes. We'll provide workshops on technology, on test taking skills. So you'll get all of these workshops, and I'm going to break it down in a little bit more detail later. But when you get involved, we expect that you actively participate as well as engage with the other libraries who are part of this program. So again, as much or as little, but we're here to help you through it. We also are going to ask you that you will you do a couple things for us. First, when you run programs that are When you run programs that are using the tools that we've provided to you, the content that you've learned from this program, we just expect that you would adhere to the style guide that we're going to provide to you throughout the program. And then also, just like we in Plainfield are going to have to provide statistics to the state library on how many sessions we've run, how many training hours, how many libraries are involved, how many individuals are involved, we're going to ask you to share some statistics with us as well. We don't need anybody's personal information, but we want to know the number of clients that you have, the number of workshop hours, the number of hours of service. Success stories are also going to be really huge. We want to hear about anything that went well. We also want to hear about things that you might need some help with. So let's talk a minute about why we should do this, why we should start expanding services around digital literacy. And the first reason really is it's important. We know our patrons need to know more about digital literacy. They need support with job searching. But let's also look at how this links to digital inclusion. And Andrea mentioned this a little bit in her introduction. But digital inclusion, and I'm going to give you the definition according to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Digital inclusion refers to all of the activities that are required to ensure individuals and our communities, including the most marginalized communities, will have access to and use of information and communication technologies. So this is made up of 5 elements. Digital inclusion needs to ensure that folks have internet service that is affordable, internet service that works well, access to internet-enabled devices, access to digital literacy training, online programs and content that are not only usable, but are user-friendly and make people want to use them. Digital inclusion also includes different policies and programs around providing these elements. And this is where the labor and literacy libraries can help. We help by providing digital literacy programs. And there are more and more government entities and other entities that are providing funding opportunities to support these types of programs. Excuse me. So in addition to supporting the needs of your patrons, everything about the Labor and Literacy Library program is set up to allow you to run programs, big or small, that truly support digital inclusion. And this will put you in a place where you're prepared to apply for grants to continue what you're working on and what you've been doing if you join us this year. So really, we want to be your springboard to the next level of digital inclusion in your library. Yep, let's talk about the important things about this year, costs and funding. So before I tell you more about how we at Plainfield are going to support or teach your libraries to work with patrons on all of these different skills, I need to let you know that there is no cost to any library or any library staff. All of the labor and literacy workshops and trainings are free of cost to you. There's also no funding available to your library. So the Labor and Literacy Library program, it was designed to continue to move your libraries to the forefront of digital inclusion. Because honestly, most libraries are already supporting patrons with free Wi-Fi. Many are also providing access to public computers, and some are also providing digital literacy training. But not enough of us have enough digital literacy training. So our goal of our program is really to support you in starting or growing your digital literacy and job searching programs. So I want to get into a little bit, whoops, my mouse stopped working. I want to get into a little bit about how this works. So as I've said, each library that participates in the program, their participation is going to be different because each library has different staff levels. You have different on-site resources, different workloads. So every library is going to utilize the tools of this program a little bit differently. I'm going to map this out in a little bit but first I'm going to give you some concrete examples of what being a labor and literacy library might look like for you and for your library. So for example, are there any libraries here who have maybe, you've got some patrons looking to brush up on computer skills? You've got 1 or 2 public computers that you can allow patrons to use to do so. And maybe you've got somebody who can spend an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, helping to make this happen. So if you think this sounds a little bit like your library, what I would suggest you do is you sign up to offer Northstar digital literacy online learning to your patrons. And I'm sure some of you have heard of Northstar. If you wouldn't mind going down to the bottom of your screen and select, give me a thumbs up or a raised hand if you have heard of or have used Northstar. See a couple thumbs. Yep, just a couple. Okay. Oh, more and more are coming. Great. Northstar is an online self-paced digital literacy training program. It has lessons on all kinds of computer skills, basics, email, internet, so many more things as well. I always think of Northstar for patrons as that first level of, I don't know much about a computer and I need to learn. And for libraries, it is such an easy entry into the world of providing digital literacy training. We'll give you a training session. If you sign up to use Northstar, we'll provide you with a training session to help you get started. How do you set up your learners? I'm seeing comments about Northstar is really good. Well, how to set up your learners. We'll help you teach learners how to start taking their lessons. And this can work in any library looking to start or increase their digital literacy skills. So we'll provide you with the training for you to help out your patrons using Northstar. And then if you decide you want to do more with it, we'll have other training sessions for you on proctoring assessments so your patrons can earn certificates. We'll also offer a session on using Northstar's instructor-led curriculum. So for bigger libraries with more staff or more capability, you could run in-person training sessions by using by using the Northstar curriculum that's already written.
Hey, Kristen, can I pop in just for a sec real quick?
Absolutely.
So listen, I'm looking in the chat and I see that there's a couple of libraries, and look, it's a legitimate concern. Everybody has staffing issues. We know that. That's one of the reasons we've been scaling back particularly, but we got to deal with a couple of truths here. And these are things that, you know, are hard and they're true about the library world at the moment. No one is going to increase the budget for a building that they perceive as being where the books are. Okay, we know libraries are relevant. We know libraries are providing access to information as we always have, and that involves all of these new economy skills, that involves digital literacy, that involves all of this. We understand that. The public does not always understand that, and we certainly know that a lot of municipalities do not understand that. It would be wonderful if we had the resources to sort of just swoop in and provide staffing the way we were able to with the ARPA funding. But that was certainly an aberration, as we all know. The hope here is not that tomorrow you're going to turn around and be doing a full service out of your building. We know that's impossible. But by starting to build small aspects of this service that can be done, you will be able to increase in the eyes of your funders, that's your municipality, and also your public that talks to their municipality, the relevancy of your building so that you can argue for more than your third of the mill. Okay. I don't want to use Plainfield as, you know, like the example all the time, but we're funded at over twice our third of a mill. And we know we've been able to argue that. And listen, Plainfield's not a rich town. We've been able to make that argument for budget based on the strength of these programs, based on their connection to economic development, based on their connection to digital literacy. So I understand where you're coming from. Absolutely, one of the guiding things that we looked at when we redesigned this was, even when libraries had staffing covered via this, even when that happened, there was still an administrative load that was difficult because so many libraries are so tight on staffing and are so tight on infrastructure that they couldn't even support a service that was within itself paid for. So we have to start turning that tide when it comes to our relationships with the municipality and our relationship with the public and our relationship at the state level, that they understand what we know, which is how important these services are and how libraries are best positioned to offer them. So I certainly understand the concern and I understand the frustration. And I just hope that we can communicate that this is, in a long game sense, a way to address that. Because unless we start entering very strongly into these services, we're going to lose our ability to advocate for sustained funding and to advocate for expanded funding, which means we lose the ability to provide these services as they're needed to our communities. So we absolutely understand it. I absolutely understand the frustration, and I'm just hoping that everyone can bear with us because we do see this as directly addressing that. Just not this year with direct money, but hopefully we are building the ability to advocate at a larger scale and raise the profile at a larger scale that will result in that. You guys saw we were talking about somewhat uniform metrics. You know what's beautiful about those uniform metrics? We're not all advocating independently. That means somebody can say, hey, look at all what libraries have done across the state. This is why libraries are important. So we're really working on it. And we absolutely understand your frustration. And I hope that I've been able to connect where this goes to that. And, you know, if there are other concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. We can absolutely talk about that.
And if I could cut in as well, it is exceptionally cruddy when there is a service that is offered that was so well received, such as Access Navigators, and then it isn't able to continue because ARPA was a defined period of time and a defined period of funding. I would encourage you to be in touch with NJLA since they were coordinating that program, and I don't know all that is happening behind the scenes, but I know that the people who were instrumental in putting that together recognize the need and the desire for those services. I'd also like to point out that this labor and literacy library program is one program, and that these types of things, well, part of that was that there was no funding. The ARPA funding came through and the ARPA funding is gone. We are back to the level of funding that we had previously, which is not a cut, but it is a cut, you know, in that viewpoint. So this is one program. We're in a period right now as well where there will be additional funding that should be coming out because of federal programs through the infrastructure bill, through the Infrastructure Act. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like at this point. We know that there are things that will be coming around next year that may not be coming through the state library. They may be coming through other channels. And by keeping digital literacy at the forefront, and just even if it isn't, you know, continuing some of those services in the way that they were before, but just keeping up to date on what is available, it will be putting libraries in a good position for things that come around in the future. And I would encourage you, I'm going to take all of these comments back to the state library, back to the other staff that have been working on this. I want you to know that you're being heard and that funding is available, you know, that those decisions are made by the state librarian and by administration and how to handle the budget each year. And the most that we can do, that I can do, is take the feedback and let everyone know what the desire is from libraries about the varied needs of small versus medium versus large libraries. And so thank you. You can reach out to me directly. Jennifer Nelson is also very interested in hearing directly from the library community. So I'll be passing things on directly, but I'm also going to put her email address in in the chat and let you know that you can reach out to her and let her know as well how you're feeling. So, so thank you for your comments. Please keep them coming. And I'll turn it back to you, Kristen. I know you have other stuff to get to. Sorry.
And what I was, no. I appreciate, Scott, that you interrupted because we do have a lot to get through. So I hadn't been reading the chat. So it was great that you interrupted. And there were two things I wanted to point or to just put out there for you. We have a lab in our building. We use Northstar in it a lot. We actually have a volunteer who helps people, I think it's 2 days a week, get into Northstar and learn how to use it. So we have the technology, we've taught them what to do, and then they can start working with patrons. So that might be something that folks consider. And then I just saw Diana's last comment. And she's in agreement that it is so hard to free up staff time to do things. And yes, Bradley Beach did get the ARPA funding last year, started a program and was able to receive more funding to continue this program. So this is going to be a jumping off point for the libraries that can figure out a way to do it. Because as Andrea said, more funding will be becoming available. We've been all waiting to see how the infrastructure program is going to work to provide funding. So we are trying to figure out ways to support you in as big or as little of a way as possible. So I hope that information helps a bit. I am going to go through a couple more examples and then just wrap up what comes next if this is something you're going to choose to work on. So, whoops, I have to click back in here. Maybe you've got patrons in your library who need help with job searches. Do you have a meeting room with a table in it and a staff member who wants to try out offering a training session? So we're not talking a lot of big stuff. Sadly, I can't come to all of your libraries and do training sessions. I would love to, but I am sharing with you my knowledge so that you can try to move forward with the training sessions on your own. But let's say you have people job hunting. You've got somewhere you can all sit together and somebody who wants to do some training. We're going to release a resume and cover letter workshop in a box. It's going to cover types of resumes and how to start writing your resume and language that should be used in your resume. So you watch the training. You take the tools that we provide you in our box, which is really digital media that you'll have access to. And you can run that workshop. Although maybe the person running the workshop or that wants to run the workshop has never run a program before, has never really presented information. We're going to have workshops for that as well. Several of them. There's one on running a workshop, on presentation skills, something called cycle of instruction, which is so helpful whenever you're trying to teach information to somebody, even if it's one person or 5 people or 10 people. So those programs can be used for somebody getting ready to run programs, or if you already run programs in your library like that, send your staff to some more professional development to beef up their skills. I'm going to look at the time real quick. Sorry, and I'm going to decide what to share that might help. And I'm going to focus on the smaller libraries, but folks, there are things for bigger libraries who do have people to run more sessions and do this work. So let's think about a library that maybe has some patrons taking their GED. Even if you know that they're working with somebody else for GED tutoring, but they do it in your library, wouldn't it be great to be able to offer them test taking skills? Test taking is a skill, and folks who tend to be working on their GED maybe haven't learned that skill in the past. So we'll offer you a workshop about how to break down questions, how to look at your answers and rule out the incorrect ones, how to problem solve, time management. We even talk about test anxiety in this workshop. So this would work as long as you've got somebody who can spend the time to learn the materials and then an hour every once in a while to present it. So yes, it is still going to take staff time, but we're trying to build you up here so that you can. Sorry, I'm looking at Mary also offers practice tests. Yep, there's all kinds of great tools. And this is a great program to get involved in to talk about the different tools and how you handle all of these different things. We're going to skip over this one again, talking about Northstar. If you have staff who want to offer training sessions, there are a bunch of the training sessions that we provide are going to all be over Zoom. We are going to provide you with marketing tools. They're editable for you to put your library information in them, but we're going to give you internet or social media sized flyers that you can create, post on social media, actual size flyers that you can edit, post places. So we're going to offer sessions on marketing and promotional tools for you. And again, you don't have to do this on your own. We talked about this a little bit before, where we're going to provide any support we can for you to be able to run your programs. We will give you standardized materials that you can use as is, or that you can modify to work better for you. I've talked about the workshops in a box that gives you digital literacy and other types of trainings that you can share. We are going to have office hours once or twice a month where we all come together and talk about what's working, what's not working, what are our success stories. And then you have access to a large amount of, there's a typo in my presentation, a large amount of professional learning. So you can gain skills around working with potential funders and funding partners as well. And then you will show up as a labor and literacy library in sorry, I keep looking at chat. That's why I should have it closed. That you're going to show up on the state library's website, in the website to promote labor and literacy library services that are available at your library. But I see Rosie asked if there's a deadline to apply. There is not. I see this sort of as a running program where, you know, you can decide you want to do this. Let me rephrase that for a second. No, there's still not a deadline. You don't have to apply. You're going to register for this program. And if you register for this program, you get to choose what it is that you want your library to be doing. So I hope that helps answer that a little bit. Before we go over this slide a little bit more, Sarah, can you open the poll for us? We just want to get a quick poll of what made you decide to come to this session and learn more about the Labor and Literacy Library. So if you could just type in an answer, what made you want to learn more about this program? And then go ahead and submit it. And I know we've heard some of your comments that you were hoping it was going to be a way to get somebody in your library to do programs, or, you know, and you can put that in here. It will help us understand better what you're looking for and what what made you decide to come and join.
Hi, Kristen, not to jump back in again, but just there's some stuff in the chat about partnerships. I'm going to keep this really brief, but I don't want to lose the thread. We work heavily with our AJC and with our Workforce Development Board, like literally do like $150,000 a year in contracts with them for the last couple of years. My background before all this was I worked at a workforce development learning link. Yes, they have some of those services, but that doesn't mean that there's a duplication of services. There's a couple of really key differences. And as I said, we have a wonderful partnership with ours, and they understand what those differences are. One, We have almost no barrier to entry. The workforce learning links, the workforce development board funded programs generally do. There's a degree of paperwork that has to be done. They really don't have drop-in job search assistants. Okay, you have to be a full-on client of them. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of paperwork. That's even where they have it, they may not have the resources. Those of you guys who have worked with clients who are attached to an AJC know that they don't always have the best luck getting the more intensive job search services. And that's where we sort of are able to come in. So you do want a degree of services, but to think that there's a duplication of services is not really accurate given the picture of what AJC services are. And again, I'm not knocking them. We work incredibly closely with ours, but we're able to do significantly other things. So I'm seeing the metrics online learning center. Yes, different counties have different ones. Some of them work better than others. I'll be honest, the reason that we don't necessarily promote them as heavily is to go back to the point, a lot of the clients don't do well with the self-directed learning unless it's paired with some form of support, which I think is back to the staffing issue, and hopefully, you know, we can work on that. So like I think Union County was using, I don't think it was metrics, I think they had a different one, and they sort of made an announcement at one of the meetings, their workforce development board meetings. They were like, oh, we had 1,100 people sign up and used it for a total of 1,100 hours, roughly. Like, we can all do math. So a lot of these services that are purely online or purely digital don't tend to have what we would call good client adherence, because our clients, by the nature of them being our clients and the sort of come to us, don't have the ability to successfully navigate them without the sort of help that hopefully we're looking to position libraries to be doing in the workforce development system, or in the just general community development system. You know, it's like the old joke, but to an extreme degree, that the VCR used to come with a tape that said how to use your VCR, right? Anyway, there's more information on this. I don't want to be too off topic, but I just feel like the chat is getting very down a rabbit hole. So would it be possible if we could hold all of this? I will stay on as long as necessary to answer all questions, but I would like Kristen to be able to make it all the way through her presentation. I know that time is limited for all the people who came on. And I will stick around to answer questions as long as there are. I'm glad we have this high degree of engagement, but I also want to be respectful of the amount of people who took time out of their day.
And then I'm going to ask y'all to hold off on the chat for just a moment, because Sarah's going to put some links into the chat and I want everybody to be able to access them. And then we will definitely continue this once I just finish up with the what's next slide. And it's a great conversation and it'll help inform how we run programs. So I definitely want to finish that if y'all can, but I'm going to go over this real quick. So what is next? If you want to become involved in this program, you just complete a registration form that you'll find on the State Library, Labor and Literacy Library website, pardon me, or on, Sarah's going to send you, I believe, a link to it.
I'm reposting them. They're in here already. I'm just going to repost them all.
Thanks so much. You'll also get an email with all of these links and information. When you decide to register, the next thing you want to do is really think about what it is that your library is ready for, what you want to accomplish. You can reach out to us through Labor and Literacy Libraries. Sharing phone numbers doesn't always work. We're way more close to our email right now, but we can speak to you directly. And then you would start to think about the workshops that we're providing that you want to attend. And I'm going to let you know that pretty much all of the workshops will be repeated multiple times to work into folks' schedules, except for the workshop in a box ones. A workshop in a box, we're going to record a session. You're invited to join us for that one session. Then all of the materials get posted into a program that you will then be able to download, watch the video, and use those tools for. if I lost my train of thought. Oh, I wanted to show you real quick the website so that you would see where everything is. Beautiful. So you've got a link to this website. You can rewatch the Jennifer Nelson video, all kinds of information. And then here's our calendar of events. So if you click on a month, you can then see this is the program we're in. On the 20th of December is a how to be a labor and literacy library session, where we're gonna talk through helping you figure out what services that you want to offer, what you want to attend to be able to offer those services. We'll also go over how to get access to all of the materials and such. We're going to post more months as soon as one of us gets a chance to PDF them again, but you'll be able to find all of that on the website. And again, we'll stay on with y'all for a little while. And Sarah will also create answers to all the questions from chat. And you can also email us with any other questions. So those of you who have now stayed a few minutes over, well, all of you, I thank you for your time. Those of you who really need to get going, have a great day, a great rest of your week. And those of you who are going to stick around, feel free and we can chat.
Yeah, I actually want to mention, Luis had a great question about whether we could let the workforce development boards or the AJCs know about this stuff. We've actually, Jen Nelson and I did present to all of the workforce development board heads maybe about 6-7 months ago with the Union County Workforce Development Board, because they said we work very closely with them. And they were, I would say most of them were fairly interested in it. There were certainly some questions about what going forward would look like, but the line of communication is open. We are going to make sure that they have access to the central website, which will have the list of where those services are. We have a standardized form that we've been using for some years for referrals with our AJC that we're going to be setting up that can be used in your own particular usage. And you know, since we do have a lot of experience working with them, more than happy, you know, on a bi-county basis to help you guys navigate those relationships. We've done that a few times as well. And as I said, it's important to just sort of understand the distinctions in the services you can provide and where they can helpfully overlap. As to one of the real things that we like to sort of stick to when we talk about why libraries is that, one, we do offer things very differently than the AJC. So right off the bat, there's like one AJC, possibly two per county. There's a few counties with two, like Union County has a, Plainfield and Elizabeth. We know transportation for clients is difficult. So by having a foothold in every community, that significantly increases the reach of Workforce Development Board funded or AJC services. And they've always found that to be particularly useful. Two, as I said, low bar to entry. Anybody know why they're called the AJC? And anybody remember what they were called before the AJC and what they were called before that? Don't worry, I don't actually go to it. They keep changing the name because nobody wants to go to the unemployment office, and they think that the name is somehow what's keeping them out, and that is not true. Okay, but people sure don't mind going to the library. And as I said, we've been really fortunate that our county has recognized that, and they have funded us doing Learning Link adjacent services to be able to essentially be that front end that does the low bar entry to service. So a lot of ideas on that. And again, I know I keep saying stuff that we're doing. When I came into the program, I had one staff person. This was about 11 years ago. If you count our grant employees, we have something like 18 now. So we started small with absolutely like you guys. And this is how you build it. And it has to be, you know, I know it stinks to say it, we're like, it's tough, but we didn't just come in and somebody's like, here's a bag of money, run a program. You know, we had to build capacity. We had to build recognition amongst our funding partners. We had to work within those things to build sort of community relevance. And we were then able to grow the program that way. And I'm not going to tell you it is easy. It absolutely was not at all.
Well,
But
Scott, when I started 2 years ago,
yeah,
you had 2 other grant employees, right?
No,
And then Elise, was it more than that?
yeah,
It's like in the 2 years that I have worked, we have more than doubled the number of grant employees that we have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so you can do it, and I don't expect everybody to do it tomorrow. I don't even expect everybody to do it, but I'm saying these are steps towards it. And what we want you to do is take what you can from it that allows you to operate the services you're operating more efficiently, right? Because in many cases, we're going to have done the work for you. And then, be able to build as much of a more formal service as you can handle. And then hopefully that it's going to be able to build from there. But we don't want anyone to look at this and go, oh my God, this is too much. Because you know what? At the lowest level, you got to say, we think libraries should be doing this. We want to know what's going on. That's it. That's what you're doing.
Send us some emails. Yeah.
Send us some emails.
I'm just looking at Mary's chat. Not all libraries need to do the services that we do in Plainfield.
Mhm.
We have a big community need for ESL, for GED, for digital literacy, for job. Like, it is a big community need, and your community may not have that specific need. As I said, it would be lovely if this program was funded so that I could come to all your libraries and help you all out. That I don't think that's what we're saying. We don't want you to start by offering all of these great things.
No.
We want you to start by thinking, well, is there one thing in this program that I can use? And even if I'm just going to go, even if I'm just going to go attend the training for it, and then I might have to think for another few months on how can I make this happen? How can I work with 1 or 2 patrons at a time? This is baby steps. We just want to help you get involved if this is something that is important for your library right now. So that's where we're at. We want to help you do it in as little ways as possible, or if you're ready to do something huge, we're still here for you for that as well.
Yeah, and and Mary, I think there's probably some stuff if you have time later that you and I can talk about, because I know the position that you're talking about where you had a service and it got taken away. We've done that, and we've actually been able to use that to leverage stuff later.
Scott
where
could talk to you about writing grants, getting funding,
the fact that you had a service that was so successful that you had all this great feedback from, and then you don't have it anymore, but you've shown need and success, puts you in actually a really great position to go after other stuff. Is there any questions out there that are a little less, I want to make sure I get to everybody a little bit before we have to.
Scott, I think Beth had a question in here about, let me just find it again.
While you're looking,
Yes, here we go. How
Sarah,
would we?
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Jeff if I maybe wanted to put you in contact with Mary.
Yeah.
I don't know, but think about that. And then Sarah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Beth's question was, how would we carry out digital literacy training with the LSTA grant, which we received, as well as this digital literacy program?
Oh, good question. You shouldn't have any issues, because the way this program is set up, sometimes with funders, you have to keep the numbers separate, right? Because there's so we have Department of Labor money, we have county money, and we have money from different places. We have to keep our numbers separate so each funder knows essentially what they got. Because of how this was, and there frankly isn't very much money behind it, I don't think need to separate them out, actually, is my understanding. I can double check that with Andrea, but I don't see any reason other than to put, say, a stipulation like, hey, we found a way to incorporate this with the LSTA stuff, because it should all, and we're not really being prescriptive of terribly much on an administrative side. I don't think you should have any issues with it. It is a good question, though.
I think administratively, we would need to report on your attendance at our sessions, and we would ask you anything that we have provided to you, that you keep statistics on how many attendees or how many patrons, how many hours, etc.
Louis had a question too.
I love this idea.
Helping patrons use Zoom to connect with services other larger libraries offer. Is this doable?
We have done that in the past. We particularly did it during the pandemic. We had, it was under a different funding source. We had Department of Labor money for job search. And I know during the pandemic, a few libraries did put up a link to our job search assistance when it went to Zoom. I'm not going to tell you it was the most successful service in the world. We got a couple of referrals from it. There was a lot of stuff that was going on, but I don't necessarily see a problem with it if the libraries are willing to. I know it's a little bit easier when we had larger staff stuff, but we had some really wonderful examples of this during the hub and spoke thing. So I'm loving it. We could just definitely see where it goes from there. But Louise, I love the idea.
Those are great ideas. I love what you're putting in there. And we still have libraries that refer people who want to take our evening IC3 classes and MOS classes. And those happen to be on Zoom. And we have lots of libraries refer people to them. So yeah, I think we could partner libraries together through office hours. Like, let's see who has some stuff they want to do on Zoom. Sorry, I paused because now I'm thinking, okay, so now I really do need to build that how to run a Zoom session training. So I'm like, oh. So yeah, but I think these are great ideas.
Anna has her hand up also.
So thank you.
Yeah, hi guys. I hope some of my comments didn't distract in the chat, but I partially came to see how I can bring this out to the other library I work with. So just a feedback. I know you guys didn't have a lot to do with the LSTA grant, but one of the kind of gotchas in there was that you couldn't fund a person that was already in employment. So since I was a guide at Bradley Beach, my contract ended. Bradley Beach was able to rehire me under the LSTA grant. That's fine, great. The other library I work for, I'd like to bring out something like this, but I'm already an employee there. And so by the LSTA guidelines, I wouldn't have been able to do it myself. They would have had to hire somebody else to bring out the technology program. It was just, it's just if Andrea or anybody from the state library is still there, it was like, I'm not even going to apply because then they'd have to hire somebody else.
Yeah.
Andrea already had to leave, but we can get that to her. So you're thinking, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying is that you feel like you can't bring this program to the other libraries that you work at?
No, I could bring this program to the other library.
It was more
right, but it's a funding kind of thing. They'd love it if I did it at the hourly rate they pay me there, but I'd like to be paid a little bit more. But
understand.
But I couldn't. It didn't make sense to. It partially didn't make sense to apply to the LSTA because then, in theory, I couldn't be the person. And from the staff at the library the other library is, I'm the only one who would want to have done that. they would have had to go out and then hire somebody else. And then that would have just been too much, too cumbersome for them to do. They wouldn't have done it. If I could have done it under the funding, that would have brought in maybe a computer or a person.
Sure. You know, I'm really, and one of the things that I think we took to heart from last year, our feedback is looking at, I mean, not every library, but even most of our small, medium to medium-sized libraries, you know, have something like, you know, obviously a ref desk or a tech desk, and ways in which we can take what existing staff time was being towed into this and make it something that is more programmatic. In that way, it will A, you know, be a little bit more effective. B, you know, if you had a reference librarian or, you know, a ref desk staff or a tech desk staff who was, you know, you know, every week I have an hour where, you know, I help people with computer stuff, that we could give them a more formal thing where, because they may have an hour to do that, they don't have 3, 4, 5 hours to prep a thing. And so certainly, and I think maybe this is my fault because of the grandiosity with which I sometimes describe stuff, our picture for the services that we think people are going to be rolling out, particularly in, you know, this early on, is smaller scale certainly than when we had the hub and spoke funded, because we had staff funded under it. So what we're really looking to do is to not overwhelm anyone, and to say, first off, you're probably, most of the libraries with staffing are probably already struggling to be providing this, any service that they can. And of course you're trying to do it. We're all committed to being here. What can we do to make that deployment easier on you by lightening any administrative load on it, by lightening any prep time on it, by lightening any record keeping time on it, so that any time that was not direct client service, first off, that your time can be significantly more client service than admin time by taking that load off, but also by making the time that is direct client service more efficient. But that paradigm does not add hours that you need to pay staff, right? And that's what we're really looking to do right now. And then hopefully the idea is that we can build off of that and both be providing more effective service at those levels, but that this can become some sort of plank for garnering further support, either, again, if, you know, we're magically get some state money for it, or if it can be done at the county or municipal level for it. And I know I want to just throw this out there, can talk money for a second. People were talking about like the Navigator program, right? And I thought, you know, Navigator's great, and they were our sister program. We love them. Let's talk about how much you would actually need to do that staffing. And it's not like a tremendously huge amount of money. It just might be in the context of your current budget. But they were, you know, roughly figure out, you know, the amount of hours you were staffing, right? And then figure out the hourly rate. And you'd see that even on a weekly. So is that a ridiculous ask once you have the established, go like, hey, you know, people are really enjoying this. This is working really well. And then going to either, you know, your county or your municipality, or it's a small enough ask for if you have any sort of private donors, like you're really only talking a few $1,000s, you know, like probably 10 to 15K would get you solid minimal service for a year. That's not, you know what I'm saying? We're not talking like you have to jump into like earth-breaking amounts of money. So we're going to start with what you can do with what you have, and hopefully get you steps to be looking to stabilize that and then build out from it. But absolutely, the one thing we're not going to do is ask you to do things that your infrastructure cannot handle, because then nobody's getting served. So everything is being designed from this idea of how do we maximize your client-facing time by minimizing your back-end time, and also how do we make that client-facing time as effective and efficient as possible for what your community needs. Okay, I'm rambling. I'm going to stop.
Jeff also has his hand up.
Yeah, let me, hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on with you today. I was one of the Access navigators here in South Jersey and really thoroughly enjoyed the program. I've been looking around on a couple things on AmeriCorps, and it appears that Literacy Minnesota has been out looking for facilitators in both New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I don't know how successful. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve Lewis. Does anybody know that name? With Literacy Minnesota. And if they are successful in recruiting volunteer facilitators, would that benefit what our libraries in New Jersey are trying to accomplish in terms of needing some staff to run these programs? So what contact have you had with Steve Lewis at Literacy Minnesota?
Well, Literacy Minnesota is, I think, the people that did Northstar, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And they're looking for facilitators in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
so, and I know Jen Nelson obviously was from Minnesota, so I'm going to reach out to her on that and see if she's had. But I will say that does come to one of the other things that we've been able to do for some of our staffing. Now, our digital literacy, our formal courses, we actually do all have paid instructors for that. But our GED, ESL, and some of our lab time is all done with volunteers. Now, there's administrative load with volunteers, no
Right.
matter what. And I know even when people are like, oh, this organization will send volunteers, they're still in your building, you're still responsible for them.
Right.
The worst thing you can do is just kind of assume they're going to show up, because that will bite you in the ass.
That was one of Mary's recent comments. I believe
Yeah.
it was Mary, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
volunteers require that. Whether it's through Literacy Minnesota, I mean, I would have to look into it. It would be, I mean, if they're training people aligned to Northstar, that may be a really fantastic thing. I just don't know off the top of my head, but I will say that volunteers, we've had some really good lab volunteers. The only thing is it does tend to require a particular resident, you know?
Sure.
But I think that that's certainly something to look for. And maybe I've done for the literacy boot camp we did for State Library a few years ago, we did a lot of materials on proper care and feeding of your volunteers. So I think that maybe I should dig those back up and update those a little, because if we're looking at, again, you have somebody who has 1 or 2 hours a week of off desk time in your building, that is actually enough time, and you can have volunteers as a force multiplier at that point. But you definitely need somebody who at least has 1 to 2 hours to do the wrangling of the volunteers. So I think
Sure.
it's a great idea. We should definitely look down that. And Jeff, I'm going to probably call you a bunch and bug you, since you seem like you are a phenomenal resource. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all. I got to tell you, it was a fabulous program. Honest to God, I benefited more from the program than I think the patrons got out of it. I loved it.
Any other questions in the? Yeah, and if there's any questions that people have that they didn't want to put in the chat or really specific to their thing, send us emails. I'm a little hard to reach right now. The only reason that this is going on is that the child is sleeping in my mom's arms about away. But Sarah and Kristen, and we have people on board. So please reach out to us. I think that this sort of communication is incredibly important.
Great. Yeah, I hope something comes of this. I really do hope something comes. I got to tell you, the patrons that I met in the libraries I was assigned to, the needs were all over the board and really kind of basic. I think I only really had one patron successfully complete and get a certificate from Northstar. And she was a younger patron. She was 26 years old, smart, delightful lady. But mostly I dealt with older patrons, and some of their needs were pretty basic in terms of digital needs. Just God, I can think of one really wonderful woman I started with at West Deptford, and she knew nothing about digital at all coming in. Couldn't get on the internet, didn't have an email address, and within a year she was functional. I really felt good about it, and she was just a great person to work with. So I don't know. I'd like to see how I can help you all with these needs. I'm a retiree living here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We've got a fabulous library here. I didn't see any of them on today, but I think I'm going to call the executive director over there and and see if I can meet with her. Maybe there's something we can get going. They've got a